What's a small act of kindness you were once shown that you'll never forget? Neighbors asked to borrow my truck. Told them I could not trust my truck because the tires were bad. Next day Mr. Neighbor called and said he was getting new tires for his Suburban and I could have his old ones. Told me to just show up at this certain tire shop and they would put them on. Get to tire shop and they put on brand new Goodyear tires. I asked what happened to the old tires I was supposed to receive. Shop owner said the old tires was just a story to get me in the shop. Mr. Neighbor bought me a full set of new tires instead of the old tires he said I could have. Riding my bike on a long trip through Canada. With about 50 miles to go, I had a major mechanical failure. Stuck on the side of the road in a foreign country. Within 5 minutes at least 10 cars had stopped to check on me. One guy loaded my bike in the back of his truck and drove me 30 miles to the border, where I could catch a ferry back to the US. Amazing kindness and generosity toward a stranger. He just asked that I pay it forward, and to date I've helped 5 cyclists who were broken down in honor of that promise. I was given access to a shower and a hot meal after being homeless for 9 months. I was 9 years old, waiting for the school bus in Wisconsin winter. I had a thin coat, no hat or gloves. A woman driving past saw me and stopped, giving me a blanket from the back of her car. It was a long skinny one, so she wrapped it around my head and shoulders like a big scarf. I remember thanking her, but being confused. I told her I didn't know how I would give it back when I was done borrowing it. She hugged me and said not to worry. I still have that blanket. Alternator died while I was driving home from university. Engine died as I exited the freeway in the middle of the night in a not so pleasant part of town in the days before cell phones. As I'm pushing my car out of the intersection, a guy in a truck comes up and offers to push my car to my neighborhood a good 3 miles away. He does so, and I'm pulling into my neighborhood. He simply gives a wave and drives off into the night. I never even had a chance to thank him. I took my sister who's in a wheelchair to the cinema for the first time on my own. At the end, I realized I couldn't undo the brakes and was blocking everyone. I felt like crying because I thought everyone was pissed at me. But some nice lady helped me, then took me and my sister out. She said she once had a son who needed a wheelchair. This was long ago, but I'll never forget. I was out of a job at a time that I had to support my mother. Finally landed one, but I had to walk back and forth, and I didn't have any shoes that would hold up on the walk or the work. Went to FB and mom asked around for some hand-me-downs we could buy from someone. A day later a very kind man showed up with a brand new pair of really nice shoes he had just gone out and bought for me. He left before I could even get any money for him. I cried. My gym teacher purchased me lunch in 3rd grade after I dropped mine. I'm 34 years old and still remember this. I recorded a homemade album with my garage band in high school and handed out a few CDs. A few weeks later my English teacher approached me with 5 pages of notes on what he liked and what I could improve on. He apparently got the CD from someone at the high school and listened to it all the way through. It was over an hour long. He didn't know I was the singer and guitar player until he asked the person who gave him the CD. He said that if I ever got a shot in a studio, I would create something amazing. Thank you to all the teachers out there who believe in their students. It makes all the difference to some of us. During the single most difficult time of my life, a stranger on Reddit gifted me $500. To me, it was a fortune. I received it while at work and just broke down. It started the change of my life, and a few months later I was able to move, met my now fiancé, had my son, and found my job. I still message them once in a while to update them on my life and continue to thank them for their generosity. But I think they abandoned their account years ago. Edit. You all have inspired me to write them another message. It's been a while. And a shout out to everyone who has or wants to do something similar. I hope you understand how earth-shattering, in the best way possible, those kind of gifts can be. At work I was complaining about heartburn once. I was still pretty new to the job. Didn't really have any work friends. Felt like an outsider. My life outside of work was pretty crap as well. The bartender on shift overheard me and ran to a nearby coffee shop to get me a chocolate milk. It definitely made the heartburn go away, but it was such a needlessly kind act. I don't think I'll ever forget it. 2 years later we are still friends, and she is definitely one of the kindest people I've ever met. I literally coasted into a gas station out of gas on my motorcycle. Then realized I didn't have my wallet. Some lady saw me patting all my pockets, and that I was upset, and offered to fill up my tank. I only let her put $5 in, which on a bike is a lot, but it meant so much to me. I was bullied a lot as a kid. There were 3 boys in the neighborhood who were always really mean to me. Well, there was a new kid who had just moved in, like half the size of the neighbor boys, and he already had a target on his back because he was very flamboyant. Well, one day the boys were picking on me and this kid. It was the first time anyone ever stood up for me, and man, he got pissed. He got his ass kicked. I felt terrible, but he was super happy about it afterwards. I wish I remembered his last name. I hope he has an amazing life. I was bullied in elementary school and an older boy defended me. He became my first crush, and I still remember him. As a boy, I developed rheumatic fever and had to stay home for months to work through it and recover. When the lady next door found out how sick I was, she made a big pot of homemade chicken soup. It was delicious and full of healthy, fresh ingredients. To this day, Mom believes that it was this woman's kindness and love she put into her soup making that helped me recover faster. I was at a concert and a couple behind me gave me a VIP pass to get a picture with the artist because their friend couldn't come. Never will forget it. I fainted walking up steps on my way to calculus at university. A stranger caught me and put me down on the landing. If it wasn't for him, I would have gotten very hurt. When I was at school, I helped a girl out when she was having a meltdown in the bathroom. A few weeks later she pretended to be my friend who had been waiting to meet me when I was being followed home by 2 guys. We never saw each other outside of those 2 occasions, but I still think about her and hope she's doing okay somewhere out there. I broke my foot and was trying to limp my way across campus with crutches in the pouring rain. Someone ran over with their umbrella and walked across campus with me so I wouldn't get rained on. The time my car broke down in the middle of the night and my phone died, and I didn't know what to do. A random stranger pulled over and told me we all need a little help sometimes, and I'll never forget her words as she helped me jumpstart my car. So once in high school, I ate at a Mexican restaurant and unknowingly threw away my car keys on my tray. When I was done eating, I went and asked a worker if he had cleared them off the table, and he said no, but that he had just taken the trash out to the dumpster. I remember going outside and calling my dad to ask if there was a spare, and he told me no. So I went back inside feeling humiliated and about to ask if I could look through the dumpster, only to see that this man had already dug through the dumpster on my behalf and ended up finding my keys for me. He just went above and beyond, and to this day I'm so grateful for his help. After my dad passed away, my depression kicked into overdrive. I went to the doctor and got a prescription for antidepressants. While I was picking up my prescription, I started crying. When I apologized to the pharmacist for crying like a child, the pharmacist said, "You don't have to apologize. You recognize you have a problem and you are trying to fix it. That is a brave thing." It changed my perspective on treating my mental illness. I had just lost my insurance and my epilepsy medication was over $400. The pharmacist got me some coupons that cut the price in half. She didn't have to, and it was against company policy. I now work in a pharmacy in the chain, but she did it anyway. Very nice lady. I was paying for groceries at a Trader Joe's and the cashier, F60, asks me what I'm doing this weekend. I tell her I'm actually graduating with my master's degree on Saturday. Her eyes light up, beaming smile, and tells me congratulations and to wait right there. She comes back a minute or two later with a small bouquet of roses and tells me to celebrate my accomplishment. Particularly meaningful since my parents could not make the ceremony. I thanked her, gave her a smile and a hug, and never saw her again. I had a coworker about 10 years ago. We became work friends, but he was moving to another state. So on his last day, he brought and gave me an iPod Nano. Back when they were fairly new. Completely filled with different music that we had talked about or listened to together. No one had ever done something that thoughtful for me before. I could have cried. If you're out there, Gabe. That's something that I will always remember. After the recessions and our house's foreclosure, my family and I were homeless during the summer between my 4th and 5th grade in school. When school started back up, I went to live with some family friends who clothed, fed and loved me as one of their own. Not only that, a few weeks before moving in with them, one of my mom's coworkers heard about our homelessness and secretly organized a fundraiser for my parents out of the state park they were living in, along with about $1,000. They got me a book bag filled to the brim with all the school supplies I would need for the year. Still brings me to tears thinking about. I just graduated high school this May, and I'll never forget it. I worked in bridal for 6 years, which means I was berated by hormonal bridezillas nearly 5 days a week for 6 years. After one particularly awful day at work, I decided to get chipotle for dinner. I was defeated and exhausted. The girl making my burrito bowl genuinely asked me how I was doing, and I nearly lost it. She was the only person to be kind to me all day. I held back tears during my entire transaction. That was about 3 years ago, and I think about her kindness often. Please be kind to retail and food workers. When I was little, I was waiting for my aunt in a supermarket. Whenever someone exited the supermarket, the doors were automatic, so every time someone left, I stood by the doors and pretended to magically open the doors. One person said thank you. I burnt my hand pretty bad at work. I was dropped off at an urgent care by a coworker. I was sobbing, barely able to talk because of the pain. The receptionist was extremely rude to me. I had an older man who was waiting on his wife come help me with everything, taking my wallet out of my purse for me. I had to wait a while before I was seen. He sat next to me, told me little funny stories about his grandkids. He even had me hold his hand and squeeze it tight to try to take my mind away from the pain. When I was finally called back, he wished me well. I think about him sometimes. He didn't have to do that, but he saw that I was in pain and wanted to help. Edit spelling. U/procrastinator 2112 buying me a pizza when I was down and out. Edit. Whoever gave me silver. Thank you so much. But it's him that deserves it. I was in New York City taking a lunch break at a job I absolutely hated. I was sitting eating alone at a McD's, and after about 15 minutes, this man in his 40s or 50s, I'm a 28 years old male at the time, goes up to me and says something like, "Hey man, you look really sad. Things will get better," and just shook my hand. Takes a lot for one adult man to offer that up to another strange man. Really cheered me up. Edit. Wow. Woke up to this blowing up. Most upvoted comment yet, and thanks for the golden awards. I think I've told this story before, but years ago I had the norovirus and was so sick I thought I was going to die. My dad took me to urgent care, and the first doctor that saw me acted like I was being dramatic and gave me a pill to take. I couldn't even keep a sip of water down to take the freaking pill. Went back and insisted on seeing a different doctor. In walks this tiny Muslim woman, and the first thing she does is take my face in her hands and say, "Oh, you poor thing." I immediately started to cry. She gave me some shot in the hip and suppositories, and I immediately started feeling better. I will never forget her kindness. My first semester in college was horrible. I was, and still am, in a deep depression. One day I was walking home from school and a guy running by said, "I like your shirt." It was that simple. I didn't know him, and I didn't care at that moment. It made me feel happy because I got a genuine compliment. When I get compliments from friends or family, I often feel like they are giving me them because they are obligated to. This guy didn't have to, so it felt real. I had a troubled home life as a young man. The summer before grade 9, I was basically by myself. I needed to get school supplies. And the closest Walmart was miles away. I tried hitchhiking in the August Florida sun. And it sucked. Yuppers and subs with Jesus fish kept passing me by. Finally, an old Latino dude in an old, busted up sedan offered me a lift. He didn't speak much English. But he did know Walmart. Got me there, and tried to give me a couple bucks. Which I was too proud to take. Good dude. This one time I was waiting for a bus. And it started raining. And a random soldier just gave me his umbrella. It's not exactly donating a kidney or anything. But it was just really nice, and unexpected, and I'll never forget it. I was 17, and tried to kill myself by odding. I was in a coma for 4 days. And when I woke at some point, a nurse gave me a little back rub. She was just there for me. And that loving gesture meant the world. I will be 61 this Friday. I went to South Africa for my gap year after school. I had saved all year for a month's trip, and it was the first time I'd traveled alone. Culture shock / anxiety and the realization of how far I'd come hit me, and I ended up crying in the bathroom of Johannesburg Airport. A kind lady noticed me, and asked me if I was okay. I sobbed and said I just couldn't believe I was on the opposite side of the world from home, and I'd worked so hard to get there I just felt overwhelmed, and she gave me a hug, and said some kind words I can't fully remember, but I felt much better, after she'd been kind enough to check that I was okay. 3.